Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you enjoyed your lunch. My name is Patricia. I work at Safaricom. I take care of the Cyber Defense Center. That's our fancy way of saying the SOC because we are not kawaida people. We like fancy words. So I'm looking for my panelists. So I'd like to welcome Francis, who's one of my panelists. I can see him somewhere there. Francis, karibu. Ivan is also another one of my panelists. Fred is my other panelist. I haven't seen him yet. I don't know if he's in the room. Fred. And then Dr. Harrison Naji. I saw him some time earlier. So have a seat, gentlemen, as we wait for Dr. Harrison and Fred. So we could do a quick round of intro, and you could introduce yourself and also tell us about your experience or what you have in your pipeline in terms of automation, especially in terms of security operations. So are you using any automation in your workplace, orchestration? If not, is that in your plan?
All right, so good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Francis Mwangi, and I am currently the group head of IT security at Platcorp Group. So Platcorp Group, if you have heard of Platinum Credit, Premier Credit, all those microcredit institutions, they're part of the same family. So Platcorp Group is a parent company. So I wear many hats. I am also part-time lecturer at USIU and JQuad in cybersecurity primarily. And so I've been in the cyber industry, or in the tech industry, for about 16 years now, and 9 of those years in cyber. So to answer your question, Patricia, what kind of infrastructure do we have in place in our environment? So when we look at, in terms of threat monitoring and in terms of just gathering intelligence, we are predominantly on the cloud in terms of all our operations. We run all of our operations on the cloud. And so most of the monitoring that we would do would be on that level. So some of the things, for instance, we've done is that we've been able to get a SIEM on that cloud platform to be able to just give us visibility of what's happening there, in terms of, because of most of our applications are hosted there. And of course, just being able to look to look at other toolings that we have on the cloud platform, such as Guard Duty, just to be able to give us more information. In terms of the SOAR, that's something that's, of course, in the pipeline, and currently experimenting with different options available. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, Ivan.
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much. My name is Evan Miriti from TBM, a security specialist from TBM, largely working with clients to improve their security programs, their security procedures, and also improving their, securing their SOC maturity. So I have been largely working with most of the clients in the region. And so maybe to the question that Patricia was asking, some of our clients, I've seen them orchestrating maybe like user provisioning. That is one of the use cases, threat hunting, and also maybe you can say breach notifications and compliance. Yeah.
Thank you. Over to you, Fred. Yeah. Yes, introduction and your experience with security automation, orchestration, and response.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. We're just from lunch. Good afternoon again. Yes. So I'm Frederick. I'm a vice chair at Kenya CyberSecurity and Forensic Association, which we started about 8 years ago. My role there is to serve members. So people join, and we have a framework to build them to become mature professionals. On the side, I run a company that I started way back in 2009, and one way that we interact with SOA is that one of our key focus as a company is we focus a lot on SME. And currently, we are building capacity for them to be able to even grasp what SOA is. Is it a tool? Is it a technology? Is it a framework? Is it a model? So that is what we are doing. And we are also assisting them to be able to keep maturing from one level to the other and completely embrace that specific concept. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we also have a panelist online, Mr. Prasanna. Please introduce yourself. Tell us about your experience with security, orchestration, automation, and response tools. And if you're not using it, is it in your pipeline? Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me, Patricia. I appreciate the organizers, Carol and team, for steadfastly promoting tech events and bringing community together. I convey my greetings to all dignitaries, all the delegates, all protocols observed. So I work as CIO and CISO for Dangote Group. We are out of Lagos, Nigeria, but we operate in Pan-Africa. I've been here for about 11 years in my job. And fortunately, I had the privilege of seeing a significant evolution of the technology in the last decade, especially cybersecurity that we have seen. I have been personally involved in some of these activities ground up at the grassroots level, even at times getting involved in conflict-related activities. So I'm intricately aware of the pace at which things are changing, particularly last couple of years. So we have been doing our own version of SOAR, automation, AI, and I would love to engage in the discussion and learn from panelists on what they're doing. Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you, Prasanna. Finally, please introduce yourself, Dr. Harrison.
All right.
Afternoon.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Harrison Najan. I'm the Group CISO for First Bank and the subsidiaries. Thank you. Prasanna, thank you. I see you here.
Good to see you, Harrison. Always a delight.
So, Dr. Harrison, we were also talking about our experience with the SOA technologies. So maybe you could tell us your experience with
Yeah, I use SOA. And what we have done is we have so many playbooks on it. And what we have been able to do is to use that to automate a lot of processes, a lot of incident management processes. And we have also been able to move it beyond the incidents, okay, to use it to do orchestration at the ecosystem level. So that way you can have the systems talk to themselves, okay? Yeah, so yes, I have a use case for SOA. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I want to set the context, try to wrap up the points you've gotten from the session yesterday and today. One of the emerging issues is that, number one, there's a skills shortage. Number two, adversaries are evolving. And number three, the attackers are moving at a very high speed. So remember, as defenders, we have all agreed that breaches will happen. It's a matter of when. So that we've accepted. So the next thing we need to do is to make sure we narrow the gap between the time the attackers get into the network and the time they get to do whatever they want to do within our network. So we want to be able to pick them as early as possible and kick them out as fast as we can. So let me paint a picture of Safaricom. So we are a telco. So we have a SIM. So our SIM ingests 10,000 events per second. So that's 600,000 events in a minute, 36 million events in an hour, and 364 million events in a day. Now we have one analyst who's taking care of the entire organization, who's at the front line. So it's not possible for them to go through all that event. So we have a SIM, we will do our correlation rules, our detection rules there. And then we realize that the SIMs are not intelligent, so they are prone to throwing repetitive alerts, they are prone to false positives. So we set up a SOA on top of our SIM. So what the SOA will do, exactly what the name says, it will first of all orchestrate, which is what the good doctor talked about. So we will have this one single pane of glass where our analyst will log into, and they'll be able to see our entire ecosystem because all the systems are connected. When I started my job, I was a SOC analyst. So when I get into the office, I set up, I'll have my SOA, and then log into like 20 other consoles. And because of the evolving threat landscape, there are more solutions. So an analyst would have close to 50 solutions to monitor. So with orchestration, we've narrowed all that into one single pane of glass. And I don't need to go into the IPS to block an IP. I do that from the console. Now, another good thing about automation, the SOA, is the automation I'm able to do. So human beings are not good to do repetitive tasks. So an analyst will miss a step, will get tired. But a machine, a robot, a machine is very good at repetitive tasks. So we've offloaded that from the analyst to the machine so that the analyst can focus on activity that is cognitively challenging, decisions that can only be made by a human and not a machine. So that has really given us the opportunity to do other things in the Security Operations Center, like threat hunting, threat intelligence, and purple teaming, and a lot of other nice things. You can see me in the corridor. I can tell you more about that. Now, to Prasanna, tell us about how to implement a SOA. So I want you to speak to the strategy. So the first thing I'd like to hear is about the maturity. So is there a maturity level that you need to attain before you can start thinking about a SOA? And when planning for a SOA, how do you determine what to automate? And also, what are the considerations you would have to take into place when deciding whether to go open source or closed source or proprietary? Yeah.
Patricia, you can hear me now.
Yeah? Did you catch the question?
Okay, great. So, yes. From my perspective, these are emerging technologies and they're just getting more and more established. So I would say established by now, or reasonably established. Secondly, the maturity level of the organization and the resources is always a challenge. No matter how large you are, always there is a fight with funding, budget, so on and so forth. And also, the resource attrition nowadays is a significant concern for all the IT leaders. There's a constant barrage of people looking for greener pastures and all that, which we deal with. So it actually is a blessing for us to keep things more scaled. You can achieve a lot more with less. And I can tell you from my own experience, without this level of automation, we would be completely crippled. And I can say that in our organization, I operate our information security with with just one dedicated full-time engineer that works on information security. And I wouldn't want to make it appear so simple, because in our IT, we treat everybody as a person of interest for cybersecurity. So everyone in NetOps, infrastructure, end user support, they all have certain level of calibrated access to our SOA platform, which they fulfill obligations. So it's pertinent to that. I think it's in this day and age, especially with Gen AI, SOA is not even an option. It's a necessity. If you are any organization, be it small or big, small, medium, there are different options available in the cloud, on-prem. Everyone must have one. That's how I see it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You've mentioned about budgeting and costs, and it brings us back to Fred. You mentioned that you work with SMEs, and I know most SMEs could be strapped for cash. They might not be able to buy SOA from these big vendors. So what's the role of open source tools for them in this space?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. And also thank you for this conversation around SOA. So currently, as I have said, from the company's perspective, we are doing a lot of capacity building. And for us, we represent a company that has a turnover of, let's say, 100,000 per year. So you tell them to spend $5,000 in cybersecurity. You know, it is a problem. It's going to take over 1 year before they approve. So these are the realities. Of course, there are others, you know, with a high turnover and all that, and they have no problem with spending. So after, we engaged a lot of SMEs as we serve them in different ways, we realized that, yes, they want to feel like they have cybersecurity within whatever they are doing, the systems they are running, the infrastructure, serving their customers. But the problem is trying to justify, let's say they have a board, trying to justify why they need to use $5,000, for instance, for cybersecurity. So it's possible for us to stay there, keep arguing, or we provide them with another option. And that is how we decided that back in, I think, 2011 or 2012, to start going that route. So one of our standard customer, for instance, an NGO with a turnover let's say $100,000 per year. Number one, they are struggling with issues of emails. Like now, Google have already required mail servers to have DKIM as a requirement for them to receive emails. So from there, they are struggling. Then after that, they have antiviruses. They don't even know what EDR is. We are now talking of XDR. We are talking of SOA. So as we start preparing them towards embracing SOA and all these emerging technologies and models, we encourage them first by training them through capacity building. They don't even have, some of them, they don't have matured cybersecurity departments. So we started from there. Then we adopt something like cyber capability, maturity model. And we give them, let's say, a timeline of 2 years to 5 years. And they start adopting open source. And one of the advantage, of course, the issue of the cost. So part of the cost they incur is us configuring, for instance, let's say PFSense as a firewall. Let's say they have a SIM, yeah? Allen Vault. Probably they may not incur license for a start. So the issue of the cost comes in, and for them, they look at cyber from a cost perspective. So when they pay that $2,000, they may not see the value that they will get, because it is almost hard to quantify, although formulas are there. So that is one of the reasons why we are trying much for the last 10 years to allow our customers to use open source. And of course, the issues of vendor lock-ins, sometimes disagreement with proprietary softwares, it becomes a problem. But you can imagine, this is something we have tested for 10 years, and it is working. So most of our customers now, they tell us now, we need to buy a license for $5,000 per year, because for the last 5 years, we have tested this and we have seen that it is working.
Patricia, let me just weigh in a bit on that as well. And I'd like to just double back on the maturity discussion, because Fred has just talked about open source. But also when you consider, like Bright said today morning, organizations need to consider, why are you getting this solution? Are you just getting it for the sake of buying it? Or are you getting it because you need it? There's actually a need for it. Secondly, there's the issue of the risk appetite of the organization. You may be dealing with a restaurant chain who will tell you, I mean, surely, even if we were to be hit, what is it that they will get from us? A recipe, you know. Some people argue like that way, yeah? And they'll be like, oh, someone told me earlier today, someone told them, we've not been hit in the last 5 years. Why is it going to, I mean, it's not likely that it would happen. That's the other thing. The other thing also is you need to consider that to build a proper cybersecurity strategy, in my opinion, will take you anywhere, and my colleagues here can correct me if I'm wrong, will take you anywhere between 3 to 5 years. Look at how long us guys in the techie space last within an organization. How many of you here are in your current organizations and you've been there for the last 5 years? Let me see, by a show of hands. Last 5 years? Okay, countable. Last 3 years? Last 2 years? Okay, so what does that tell us? It tells us that as techies and as security professionals, we are not staying in the organization long enough for us to be able to build up a strategy. So someone else has to come in place. They won't necessarily follow your blueprint. They'll come in with their own strategy. Am I wrong? Yeah? So what that means, therefore, is we will never achieve the kind of maturity that we are looking for, to the point that we can say, okay, now I think we are having a high number of incidences. Now I think now we need to implement orchestration and automation. I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. Thank you. That's an important point. Fred, thanks for painting the picture for the SMEs and the small companies who need security but might not have the budget. So over to you, Ivan. So what are some of the best practices to put in mind when you're implementing and executing a SOA?
Thank you, Patricia. I think it's a relevant question. But maybe what I will discuss is largely what we have been hearing from yesterday. When we consider some of the things that we have, I will be speaking maybe on our best strategy. Okay, on our best strategies, some of the practices that we have had over and over again. So SOA is about collaborating people, processes, and technologies. So you bring these three components together so that you can improve your threat enrichment, your investigation, and also your response. A case study has shown that the mean time to detect breaches is around 6 months. And when we consider like the last supply chain attack that happened, I don't want to name the name of the organization. When the report came out, it was in the organization for more than 6 months. And then the other big elephant is the time you take to respond. So SOA is coming in at that position to come and maybe quicken, reduce this time you are taking to respond and contain your breaches so that you can restore your organization into a safe place. So I will maybe tackle it from those 3 points. In the people section, you need to have the right team together. So maybe from every department. Yesterday, one of the speakers was mentioning that gone are the days when the CISO used to get in through a single door, the CIO, another door, the CTO, another door. So we need to come up with a team from all the departments in the organization that will drive this SOA program for you, so that once you have the backing from the top management to all your departments, there is a high rate of success in that aspect. The other thing that is very common that organizations that have been successful in implementing SOA take is to realize that not everything can be automated. So you set your automation goals realistically. What do I mean by this? You can look at your processes and maybe you have 1,000, maybe 100 processes. Can you automate all these processes? Maybe from that you can narrow down to a few, to begin with, maybe those that are precise, those that are easily automatable, so that as you rise now, you increase from one stage to another, you will find there is easy of adoption from even your other team members. The other aspect of people is the skills. When you're bringing in the team together, do you have all the competent people in place to address this automation? Like when you need to do some scripting, do you have somebody who can do the scripting for your playbooks in the team? So you bring in people, the right people, the competent people from your organization to carry out this journey of your automation. And then the other thing is constant improvement. You improve your team in terms of, now that after you have adopted, are you improving your team to be able to learn new tactics, new techniques, so that when they are bringing in the playbooks together, they are utilizing maybe new technologies here and there. The other aspect is of processes. You cannot automate something you do not know. And that is one of the biggest challenges maybe in the automation journey. So you have to have your processes well articulated and documented. We know there are some other things that may come in that are not part of your processes, but that gives room for improvement. So have your processes well articulated, documented, so that once you start your automation journey, you will not be calling maybe somebody who left. Maybe there was somebody who was good at AD or IAM, and that person has left the organization. And there were no processes that were documented that you need to automate, like what I was saying, a use case of user provisioning and access management. So if you have processes that are well documented, your journey of automation will be easier. The other aspect about processes is, do not couple too many processes into a singular workflow. You break your tasks into simplistic, well-defined tasks. So the importance of this is when you are now writing your playbooks, you are able to do sub-playbooks that you can call. Maybe some of us who are from the background of programming, you know about functions and what was the other thing that we used to call? So I don't remember. So when you do a function and you want to call the function is executing a specific task. So that is a similar concept when you are doing your playbooks. You have several tasks that are accomplishing a specific objective. So when you are doing your overall playbooks, you have now this position, you are in a position to do the dynamic playbooks, where if there are some processes that require human intervention, there is a task or an input for human intervention to come and maybe give approval. Let's say you are running a playbook that is touching every endpoint in the organization. Before you execute this automatically, you maybe need somebody to cross-check. Is this something that we want to execute across the our entire firm? So that is an aspect. You break your tasks, your processes into simplistic tasks. So when you are writing your playbooks now, you will be calling these tasks, and you have your full playbook. The other aspect of technology, I would say, is one is you have an open technologies that are utilizing open standards. Why is this important? My colleague here was talking about integrations. Because in your environment, maybe you have several integrations, and when you are considering the technology that you want to onboard, is the technology that you are onboarding utilizing open standards in terms of, if I do not have maybe out-of-the-box integration, I can tweak it in a matter of weeks. It will reduce your time of adoption. Because if you have maybe a legacy, a technology that is using legacy technology, you get maybe somebody has to learn a specific language for around a month, and you just wanted to accomplish a simple task. So you get technologies that are open. The other aspect of technology is solutions that are easily customizable. So that because this is your single point where you are performing your incident responses, you are getting maybe alerts from different applications, from different systems. So when you receive this raw data from these other systems, and they do not maybe conform, or they are not of the same order, can you transform this data to be something similar so that your analyst can see these data in a similar fashion? When you improve that consistency, now the automation becomes easier. The other aspect of technology is community technology that supports community forums. So you are able to maybe get new collaborations from the community. There are some communities that are out there. Their focus is investigating new malwares. So you're able to get this threat intelligence feeds into your organization very fast. And once you have this, now you are able to maybe like handle zero-day attacks in a more consistent manner. There is, I think, maybe that is all for now that I can capture amongst the three.
Can you hear me? Okay, thanks, Ivan. I like that you've broken it down into people, processes, and technology. That was a really nice breakdown. So for the next question, we'll go to Dr. Harrison. I know you have a lot of experience in this industry, and we'd like to hear from you two things. So the first one is, what are the pitfalls and challenges to avoid during the planning, the implementation of SOAR platforms? And then with a lot of AI around us, there's always this concern for balancing human oversight versus what the machines do. So please speak to those two.
Okay. Thank you very much. So let me first just touch on some of the things that you can consider when you're considering automation. Okay, and I'll talk about the pitfalls. And one of them is, first of all, understanding your process is key. But again, remember that you cannot make efficient something that is inefficient through automation, which means that there are things you need to throw away, right? And sometimes we do digitization and call it automation, right? So, which means that when you're automating, one will say, for example, I want to see the flow today, then I can automate that flow. So if there are 7 flows, you automate the 7 flows, right? So, but in real sense, the key question is, what is the goal of this process? Which means that at the end of the day, you can actually have 2 flows. Do you understand? Because some of those flows are created, or some of those boxes are created for checks and counter checks, okay? Another key thing also is ROI. ROI is very important. And this ROI is very interesting because you can automate a process and say, for example, it used to cost me 10 shillings, but now it's costing me 5 shillings. Yeah? But in the real sense, you used 1 million shillings to achieve the automation. Do you understand? So the ROI is really not about what it's costing today against tomorrow. It's about actually what it will cost tomorrow against the cost of the project itself. It's very key. Another key point that you will also find is transforming the people before you start the automation. Because most time automation is carried away as a replacement, a headcount project. Yeah? So if you're 20 in your team and I do automation, you should release 5 people, right? So what then happens is you get resistance from people because they do not want to release anybody. So they will make sure that automation never works. Okay, it's also very, very, and in terms of pitfall, one other thing that is also very key, which is again comes to the pitfall, we come to the pitfall is before you start automation, make sure that you have clarity on what your problems are. Most times people invest in automation and they start to look for the problem, right? And they start to ask, for example, what is it in your team that we can automate? Because right now they're trying to justify the investment, right? So it means that you have to have a clear view on what your problems are, yeah, and use that to drive. And then in selecting the tool you will work with is also very important. I always recommend test it against your environment. Every tool has merits. Every car has merits. But if you look in certain area, you know you need a certain car or a certain kind of car. So that is also very important. Now, so when it comes to the pitfall, most time people miss accountability, right? So they assume that because a process has been automated, your accountability is no longer yours, right? Which is that confusion between the people and the machine, right? So you say, no, but we've automated that process. You say, no, but it's your process. So you have to continuously be accountable for that process, okay? Another thing, again, which is a major pitfall with automation is a situation where the process is not entirely understood. Do you understand? We all know that we play different roles in the process line, but nobody has end-to-end view of what that process is. It's also another major issue. So most times you have things hanging. Most times you create breaks in the automation process. So you complete it, then 2 months later you realize that something has completely gone wrong. Yeah, so that's another pitfall. Now, there's also that element of people transformation. Yeah, so let me give you an example. So today, in some organizations, you have requirements like dual control, second factor authentication, and all that. But now I'm going to automate that process. Then you have also maker checker. You know, somebody have to make, somebody have to check. You know, these are control processes that are embedded in the policy, right? So, but I'm going to automate the process. So, which means that once I make the input, the only thing that will come out is output. The maker checker and everything is all embedded in the system, which means you need to go back and check how your policy will support the automation, right? And make sure that that question moves from how it is being done to why it is being done. So at the end of the day, you may actually have to do policy changes to enable you achieve certain level of automation. There's also a privacy issue with automation, a major privacy issue, which usually is not understood well or spoken to well. I'll give you an example. There are certain files today that are enclosed. Only very few people will have access to it, right? Then you run an automation program, which means you're going to run it through the chain. So that data will now be available to people it should not be available to. So that clearing needs to also happen so you know how to treat that kind of data. One of the things that have worked is where you have champions brought into the automation program team. Do you understand? And you have many people speaking to their own processes and defending their own processes and defending why that process was first put in place. Because I tell you, one of the things that I have seen is, for example, there's an incident, right? To respond to that incident, processes are created. 2 years, 10 years later, that incident is no longer there because the organization have moved away, but the processes are still there. So that data cleaning also needs to happen. So in overall, automation is very good and it has worked. It has its own merit, but every organization have to understand it, onboard it in the right way, and utilize it to be able to get the value that they hope to get. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I like how you've articulated the why. I think at the center of everything you've told us is why. Start with why, and then also tie it with your policies. Thank you so much. Francis, let's talk about metrics. So we talked about the tool selection. We've spoken about how to set it up and the pitfalls to avoid. So how would you measure success?
All right, thanks, Patricia. And first of all, Harrison, I like the fact that you've brought up policy and you've tied it in well and said that, policy has to inform the process and drive the process. But coming back to, the metrics that we need to consider. So once our orchestration and automation strategy and tools are in place, and I like that my fellow panelists mentioned, the mean time to detect and the mean time to respond metrics. Because when you consider the mean time to detect, it's, how long does it take you to be able to detect incidences? And on the other hand, also, how long does it take you to be able to recover? So if the mean time to detect rate is low and the mean time to recover rate is also low, then it shows you that whatever you have put in place is now working well. You mentioned that when you started out in your career, Patricia, that you started out as a SOC analyst and you go to work, you had to log into all these different platforms. But think about now what automation now does for you. You realize that you're actually more efficient. You're becoming more efficient, and you actually have better satisfaction as an employee because you're not doing repetitive tasks. If you consider the false positive rates, that's another metric to also look at. The false positive rates coming down, where you're not having a high rate of false positives, and you're actually focusing on the actual threats that have been detected and looking at ways to be able to mitigate those. Look at the number of incidences that are being handled, and in terms of the workload efficiency. So if the number of incidents that are being handled are higher, then it means also that you're getting some good results from what you have put in place. And also that ties in very well with scalability, because remember, with time, the number of incidences that you're handling will keep growing, because as we say, the security threat landscape keeps growing every day. Whatever you are dealing with last week, it's not what you're going to be dealing with this week. It's not what you will face next week. So that's something that the orchestration and automation process will be able to, if it's being handled well, then you know that at least you're headed in the right direction. We also consider cost savings. And someone mentioned about, I think it was Fred, who was saying when you have to go and justify that cost and that purchase to the board, to the exco, and they want to know what's the return on investment. This is a very good example of how you can be able to justify that, yes, since we implemented this particular tool, then this is where we are now in terms of our cost savings. Okay, our people are more efficient. Our people are more satisfied in terms of the work that they're doing. So there's quite a number of metrics that we could talk about, but I'd like to focus on those particular ones in terms of being able to look at how successful are we, where are we headed, where are we going wrong, what can we change, and what can we do better? Because I think processes need to be regularly reviewed and improved with time. Yeah.
Maybe something he has mentioned, that one of the things that I found to be a key indicator of whether you are ready for automation is something also Patricia mentioned previously. What are your sources of truth? If you intend you assume to be your source of truth for your SOA solution, is this SIM fully tuned? How many, as he mentioned, how many false positives are in this solution? Because if you take the alerts that maybe are false positives from your source of truth and you push them to SOA, it means now you will be orchestrating something that is not true. And as we say in programming, garbage in, garbage out. So,
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's a very good point. Something I want to add to the metric for success is burnout. So among analysts, burnout happens so frequently that it's a known thing. SOC analysts joke about burnout, but with automation, we are able to reduce the burnout rate and people will be able to enjoy their work more. So as a parting shot, we'll start with you, Prasanna. So what are your thoughts looking forward? Where do you see SOA going in terms of the emerging trends, and what is the place of AI, machine learning in the SOA environment?
Is in this it's going to be crippling without leveraging AI scale, machine learning. Although machine learning has been becoming inherent in these systems over the past few years, but especially 2024, we have seen a dramatic uptick. We are trying to pilot with at least two different parties on how to leverage. It's not because we are trying to be advanced or anything like that. We are trying to catch up. We are catching up with adversaries who are already leveraging these technologies for their own scaled attacks. So we see an uptick in the malicious events that are being intercepted. And we see increased fatigue already kicking in with our staff. There's so many alerts. I can say from my own experience, I don't know about other professionals, but I've seen about, in 2020, I've seen about at least close to 20% uptick in the last 6 months. So it's a challenge, and we can't meet up with the demand of the industry, of the business operations, without doing it out AI-based scaling. It's pretty much a necessity. At what scale we do is a different question. You can embrace. I think pretty much everybody now. I don't want to cite any commercial names, but almost all leading SOA platform providers are doing generative AI in their. How deep it is a different question. But in principle, everybody has a roadmap or some level of action going on in this space. And for us in IT profession, in securing our environments, I would say we have to test the waters carefully. Like my panelists have alluded to, very valuable insights on people, process, technology, calibrating, our resources carefully. And making sure you have adequate policy coverage, adequate governance, which is fundamental. It's garbage in, garbage out, as they put it. So.
So I think Prasanna's connection is a bit shaky. We'll come back to him to complete that thought. Over to you, Francis. Your thoughts on AI, automation, and what's your outlook of the future?
Okay. For a minute there, I thought it was our MC who was mixing. But even as we talk about AI, I think there's an important element that we are overlooking, which is cloud. Yeah, because cloud is still an emerging area. Because when you look at most organizations, not all organizations, they may have adopted cloud to a certain level. But the question then to ask would be, how then do we implement such architecture in our cloud environments? Especially when we consider that we want to keep costs down, and when we consider that also the issue of expertise. Do we have the kind of expertise in place to be able to configure those cloud environments? Because if you've got your virtual private cloud in place, which VPC handles your test environment, which VPC handles your development environment, and do you segment now a specific VPC to handle your security? And that's where you would layer everything, your SSL inspection, your SIEM tool, your SOAR tools, all of that within that particular layer. So it's something to think about, and it's something that we are seeing coming into play, coupled up, of course, with, in terms of machine learning, in terms of the threat intelligence and the reports that are collected. How can all those be collated in order to be able to make sense for us, and so that we know what to do and what areas to give priority? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So Prasanna, I see you're back. Would you want to complete? I think it's a technical hitch, so can go back to you.
Okay. So my take on AI is maybe something Patricia mentioned. A report says that analysts are handling only 50% of alerts. So AI is here and machine learning is here to assist us reduce this workload so that our analysts are only left to tackle what is critical, what is maybe requires human intervention. So I think we will not run away from it. It's coming to assist us as the adversaries are using it. So we also need to adopt it and accept it and use it to better our defenses. So that is my take.
Thank you. Fred, I'd love to hear your thoughts, especially around the open source space. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I have been listening and I have been learning, because it is only a fool who does not, who are not open up to learning. So number one, we need to ensure, like from the association side, what we are doing. Our corporate members, number one, we are creating capacity through training and showcasing some of these solutions to them. So our next step is to make sure that we have some form of benchmarking. Like now, do we have a report where we can be able to know how many organizations have adopted SOA successfully, or we are just talking SOA. The other day, I think the last customers that we assisted when they had a cyber incident, they were running SOA, yet they were breached and they lost data, they lost money. So the board was asking, how comes we approved spending for SOA, but we were hacked? So is it, is it that there's a problem with the technology or the concept? Because the effectiveness of anything, let's say like SOA, is in the, the people behind it. For instance, take an example of SME, because we do a lot in SME. They have some solutions on the cloud. They have signed up for APIs. They have different technologies spread across. And they also have others, maybe they have hosted internally. So we bring in the aspect of SOA. We have also to consider other frameworks or other technologies, other concepts that are going to work together, interoperate with this specific concept. For instance, I don't know how many have considered something like SASE, Secure Access Service Edge, which provides within that SASE, it has a component of security brokerage within your network, where it sits between the cloud and any other services that you are running from different vendors and you. Then you consider SOA within that specific aspect. When you come to now open source, you can consider something like Catalyst SOA. It is something that you can benchmark. Probably you don't have a budget approved for you to be able to purchase such a platform. You can start somewhere with something like Catalyst, something like the Hive. The Hive will help you as you train yourself on dealing with the playbooks. Currently, actually, you don't, the smart technology where we are going to, you do not need, it is almost codeless to come up with the playbooks, which makes it a bit easier. Another one is, I have encountered this question over and over again, especially for the young people. Let's say you are in programming, you want to get into cybersecurity. So they ask, do I go and do CEH or something? I'm in web and I want to get into cybersecurity. And I want to share just in 1 second, probably someone here may want to, may benefit from that. Based on where you are, we have seen lawyers come to us. They say that they want to get into cybersecurity. So we don't tell them to go and register for certified ethical hacking. They start where they are. They are lawyers, for instance. You are in programming or you are in web. So contextualize the cyber that you want to do on the basis, use where you are. Let's say you are in web or you're in software. So it is possible for you to start looking at softwares from cybersecurity perspective. So probably you can start thinking about secure coding. If you're in web, you may not have to do things to do, let's say, network security, for instance. Then that will give you a softer landing place where the learning will not be very steep for you. So you have seen someone, he is in law, and they were advised to go and take certified ethical hacking. After 1 year, they could not actually make any sense of what they had already studied. So if you are there, it doesn't matter where you are, just have the interest and the passion, then have some timeline and you are going to do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fred. As usual, I like how you encourage people to come into this space and start where they are. So thank you so much, everyone, for lending us your ears. This is all the time we had for this panel. To my panelists, thank you so much. I've learned quite a bit. I have a whole page of notes, so I'll be looking up something. So thank you so much. Help me appreciate my panel.